I thought my mother-in-law finally accepted me, until I found out she was secretly telling my kids I wasn't part of the real family, and the heartbreaking part is, I think they're starting to believe her. I cheated on my wife Sarah 3 months ago. Not because she wasn't enough. I cheated because I'm weak, selfish, and thought I could get away with it. That's the truth I'm finally ready to face, sitting here in my empty apartment at 2 a.m., typing this confession while my kids sleep in beds I'll never tuck them in for my CrossFit gym. She was everything Sarah wasn't. Single, carefree, spontaneous. When she started texting me after workouts, I told it was innocent. When those texts turned flirty, I convinced I deserved the attention. When she suggested we grab drinks as friends, I knew exactly what I was doing, but I did it anyway. Sarah was 6 months pregnant with our third child. She was exhausted chasing our 2 kids around. R had taken a backseat, and instead of being the supportive husband she needed, I felt sorry for her. I felt ignored. I felt like I wasn't getting what I deserved from my marriage. God, writing that makes me sick. What kind of man thinks he's not getting enough attention while his pregnant wife is literally growing his child? Amanda. Sarah had fallen asleep on the couch while we were watching a movie. She looked so peaceful, one hand on her bell. Our 5-year-old Emma curled next to her. I should have carried them both to bed. Instead I took a photo and sent it to Amanda with the caption, "Typical Friday night." She reserved better than that. Come over when I left my pregnant wife and kids sleeping on the couch and drove to another woman's apartment. I had with Amanda her kitchen powder while Sarah probably woke confused, wondering where I'd gone. When I got home at 3 a.m., I lied and said I got in a work call and had to handle emergency. The affair lasted 2 weeks. 2 weeks of sneaking around, deleting texts, making excuses. 2 weeks of looking Sarah in the eye every morning and telling her while planning my next betrayal. 2 weeks of my kids running to hug me when I came home, not knowing their father was a. I thought I was careful. I thought I had it my cake and eat it too. Sarah found out because I left my gym bag in the car, and when she grabbed it to wash my clothes, because even while pregnant and exhausted she was still taking care of me. She found Amanda's earring in the side pocket, a silver hoop I'd never seen before that definitely wasn't hers. The confrontation was brutal. Sarah didn't scream or throw things. She just sat at our kitchen table, holding that earring, and asked me one question: how long? I could have lied. I could have made some story about how it got there. But looking at her face, seeing the betrayal and heartbreak I'd caused, the truth just spilled out. Everything. The text, the drinks, the 2 weeks of lies. Sarah listened without saying a word. When I finished she nodded, put the earring on the table, and said, I needed to leave too. I've been living in this studio apartment ever since, seeing my kids every other weekend if I'm lucky. Sarah filed for divorce immediately. She's 7 months pregnant now, going through one of the most challenging times in her, completely alone because of my selfishness. But this isn't just a story about cheating. This is about how one selfish decision created a perfect storm that destroyed everything, including the relationships I didn't even know were at risk. My mother-in-law, Patricia, had never liked me. In 8 years of marriage she'd made it clear I wasn't good enough for her daughter. She was polite but cold, always finding to undermine me or suggest Sarah could do better. When Sarah and I were happy, Patricia's disapproval was just an annoying background noise. But after the cheating came out, Patricia smelled in the water. Suddenly she was around all the time, helping Sarah with the kids, being the supportive mother-in-law she'd never been before. At first I was actually grateful. Sarah needed support, and if Patricia could provide it, that was one less thing for me to worry about in my mountain of guilt. I should have seen what was really happening. During my first supervised visit with Emma and our 3-year-old son Jake, something felt off. The kids seemed distant, confused. Emma kept looking at me like she was trying to solve a puzzle. Daddy, she said as I was pushing her on the swing at the park. Grandma, Patricia says we're not our real family anymore. My heart stopped. What do you mean, sweetheart? She says real daddies don't leave their kids. She says real daddies stay with their families no matter what. Jake, who was too young to fully understand but old enough to sense tension, chimed in. Grandma says chose someone else instead of us. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. These weren't concepts my young children should even understand, let alone be grappling with because of my actions. I called Sarah that night, furious. Mother, is our kids against me? Are you serious right now? Sarah's voice was ice cold. Cheated on me while I was pregnant with child, destroyed our family, and are worried about what my mother is saying. Maybe worry about the fact that everything she's telling them is true. As she hung. That's when I realized the full scope of what I'd done. I hadn't just cheated on my wife. I hadn't just broken my marriage. I'd given Patricia the ammunition she'd been waiting 8 years to use, and now she was using it to systematically erase me from my children's lives. The custody arrangement was brutal but fair, everything per week, alternating holidays. On paper it looked reasonable. In reality, it meant I went from being a full-time father to seeing my kids 20% of the time. Patricia had moved in with Sarah to help with the kids and the new baby. What I didn't realize was that she'd positioned herself as the primary male influence in my children's lives. She was there for bedtime stories, homework help, school pickup. She was there for the daily moments that build a parent-child relationship, while I got scheduled visits that felt more like playdates. Emma started calling me by my first name instead of during our third visit. Emma, I'm father. I corrected her. She gently as I could. But Grandma, Patricia says fathers are the people who are there every day. She says we're more like a friend who visits sometimes. The manipulation was surgical. Patricia wasn't telling the kids I was a bad person. She was redefining what family meant in a way that excluded me and 5-year-old. The logic was flawless. Family as to was there every day, and I wasn't there every day anymore. Jake started refusing to hug me goodbye. When I asked him, he shrugged and said, Grandma says hugs are for people who stay. These weren't my children's words. These were carefully to create emotional distance between us. But the heartbreaking truth was that my kids weren't wrong. I hadn't stayed. I had chosen someone else, even if it was only for 2 weeks. During one particularly painful visit, Emma asked me the question that still keeps me awake at night. Daddy, if loved us, why did leave us for that other lady? How to explain infidelity to a 5-year-old? How to tell child that made a selfish choice that had nothing to do with how much love them? How to make them understand that relationships are complex when all they know is daddy used to live with them and now he doesn't? I tried to explain in age-appropriate terms that mommy and daddy had problems that weren't about them. That I loved them more than anything, that my leaving had nothing to do with them. Emma listened carefully, then said, But Grandma Patricia says if really loved us, would have thought about us before did the bad thing. Out of the mouths of manipulated by a vindictive grandmother. The worst part was that Patricia wasn't lying. She was just presenting the truth in a way that served her agenda. I did leave them for another woman. I didn't think about them before I cheated. A real father would have considered how his actions might affect his children. My scheduled phone calls with the kids became awkward, forced conversations. Emma would put me on speed playing, giving distracted one-word answers to my questions. Jake started asking after 5 minutes. They were polite but distant, like I was a distant relative they felt obligated to talk to. Sarah gave birth to our daughter Lily while I was at work. I found out through a text message from her sister 3 hours after the delivery. I rushed to the hospital but Patricia was in the room, holding my newborn daughter while Sarah slept. She doesn't need any more stress right now, Patricia told me coldly when I'd asked to hold Lily. I was allowed exactly 10 minutes with my newborn daughter before being asked to leave. 10 minutes to meet the child I'd helped create, whose birth I'd missed because wife couldn't bear to be there during such a vulnerable moment. The divorce proceedings moved quickly. Sarah wanted it over, wanted to move on with her. I didn't contest anything. How could I? I was the one who'd blown our family. I signed papers giving her primary custody, agreed to child support payments that left me barely scraping by, and walked away from the house we'd bought together. But the legal divorce was just paperwork. The real damage was happening in the daily interactions I wasn't part of anymore. Patricia had started referring to herself as Grandpa Patricia. When talking to kids a joke that wasn't really a joke. She was filling the male role in their lives, and they were responding to it. She taught Jake how to math homework. She was there for all the moments that build lifelong memories. During one visit, Jake proudly showed me a drawing he'd made of his family. There was Mommy Emma, Baby Lily and Grandma Patricia. I wasn't in the picture. Where's Daddy? I asked, trying to keep my voice casual. Jake don't live with us. But I'm still Daddy. He shrugged. Grandma says family is the people who live together and take care of each other every day. I realized then that Patricia was playing a long game. She wasn't trying to make the kids piss and might backfire. She was making me irrelevant. She was redefining family in their young minds so that I became an optional extra rather than an essential part of their lives. The scariest part was how well it was working. My kids weren't angry at me. They weren't or acting out. They were simply different. I was becoming a stranger to them one weekend at a time. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, Emma had her 6th birthday party. According to our custody agreement, I was supposed to have her that weekend. But Sarah asked if I could switch so they could have a big family celebration. I agreed because I wanted Emma to be happy, not realizing I was agreeing to my own erasure. I showed with Emma's gift, bike she'd been wanting for months. The party was in full Soul's family, friends from school. Everyone went quiet when I walked into the backyard. Emma ran to me, excited about the bike, and for a moment it felt normal. Then Patricia appeared at her side. Honey, why don't show Mike the treehouse Uncle Tom built for?" she said, using my first name again. Uncle Tom was Sarah's brother, who had indeed built an impressive treehouse in the oak tree. As Emma dragged me over to see it, chattering about how Uncle Tom had her help with the hammering, I realized what I was looking at: another man doing father things with my daughter. "Uncle Tom says he's going to teach me how to use real tools next summer," Emma said proudly. Patricia was standing nearby watching my reaction with satisfaction. "It's so wonderful that Emma has strong male role models in her," she said, loud enough for others to hear. "Children need consistency." The message was clear: we're replaceable and we're replacing. At that moment I understood that I wasn't fighting Patricia anymore. I was fighting the consequences of my own actions, and those consequences were winning. The party continued around me. I watched my daughter out candles on a cake I didn't help bake, surrounded by people who were actively involved in raising her while I got to see her every other weekend. I watched Jake playing with cousins he saw more often than he saw me. I watched Sarah laughing with friends who had supported her through the hardest period of her while I had made it harder. When it was time for cake, Emma insisted I sit next to her. For a moment, I felt like maybe I still had a place in her world. Then she turned to the kid on her other side and said, "This is Mike. He used to be married to my mom." Used to be past tense. I was becoming history in my own children's lives. After the party I pulled Sarah aside and begged her to talk to trick her to stop the kids against me. "Mike," Sarah said, and her voice was tired, not angry. "She's not them. She's just being honest about what family looks like to them now. They see her every day. They see Uncle Tom every week. They see their cousins and grandparents they see every other weekend. From their perspective, who's more family? Who their biological father?" She corrected. "Or not their primary male influence anymore. Or not the man they go to when they're scared or need help with homework or want to learn how to throw a baseball. That's what gave like a physical. I hadn't just lost my wife. I hadn't just lost my daily relationship with my kids. I had lost my role as their father in any meaningful sense. I had become a weekend visitor in their lives. 3 months later, Jake started kindergarten. I found out from a photo Sarah posted on social media. Jake in his new school clothes, backpack ready, standing between Sarah and Patricia. The caption read, "So proud of this little man starting his academic journey. Grateful for all the family's support." I wasn't even told about it until after the fact. That same month, Emma had a recital for her dance class. It was during Sarah's custody time, but she texted to let me know about it, saying I'd come if I wanted. I rearranged my work schedule and showed early to get a good seat. Emma was beautiful on stage, confident and graceful. When the performance ended and kids ran to their families, Emma ran past me to hug Patricia first, then Sarah, then her Uncle Tom, who had also come to watch. She hugged me last almost as an afterthought. "Did see me dance, Grandma Patricia?" she asked excitedly. "We're perfect, sweetheart. I'm so proud of." "Did see me, Mike, not Daddy Mike." During the reception afterward, I watched my daughter introduce Patricia to her dance teacher as my grandma who lives with us and helps take care of me. When the teacher asked about her father, Emma looked around to me standing by the refreshment table. "That's Mike. He comes to visit sometimes." I was a visitor at my own daughter's recital. The final came during a routine custody pickup. I arrived at Sarah's house to find Emma crying on the porch steps. Jake was inside throwing a tantrum that I could hear through the windows. "What's wrong?" I asked Emma. "Grandma Patricia is moving out. She's got her own apartment, and she says she can't live with us anymore because there's not enough room with the baby getting bigger." Patricia had been their constant for almost a year. She had filled the stability gap I created when I left, and now she was leaving too. But unlike my departure, hers wasn't a consequence of betrayal. It was a natural transition as Sarah got back on her feet. "She says she'll still see us all the time." Emma continued crying, "But it won't be the same. Why does everyone leave, Mike? Why can't families just stay together?" I had no answer for her. How could I explain that families do stay together when the adults make good choices? How could I tell her that her family had been torn apart not by natural circumstance, but by my selfishness that night? After I got the kids settled in my apartment for their weekend visit, Jake asked me the question that shattered what was left of my heart. Mike, are gonna leave us too like Grandma Patricia? I'm never gonna leave, guys, I promised him. But already did, he said matter-of-factly. Left us to live with that other lady. That was different, buddy. That was a mistake. But if made a mistake once, couldn't make another one. Out of the mouth of a 6-year-old came the question that haunted me: if I had betrayed them once, why should they trust that I would do it? I realized then Patricia's manipulation had been unnecessary. The damage I'd done to my relationship with my children was self-inflicted and permanent. She had simply helped them process a truth they were going to figure out eventually: I was not a reliable presence in their lives. Now Emma is 7, Jake is 6, and Lily is walking and calling Sarah mama but has no word for me yet. I see them every other weekend and one evening per week, just like the custody agreement states. But I'm not raising them, I'm not their primary influence. I'm not the person they think of when they hear the word father. I thought I could cheat and keep my family. I thought I could have an affair and still be a good father. I thought the two things were separate. I was wrong about everything. Sarah remarried 8 months ago, a good man who treats her well and whom my kids adore. Emma calls him by his first name still, but I've heard her slip and call him dad, twice during FaceTime calls. Jake asks him for help with homework and wants to play catch with him instead of me. They have the family stability I destroyed. They have what I could have given them if I hadn't been selfish and weak. I pay child support and I show for my sigiled visits, but I'm raising someone else's children now. Sarah's new husband is raising mine. Sometimes I lie awake at imagining alternate timelines. What if I had just gone home that night instead of to Amanda's apartment? What if I had talked to Sarah about feeling disconnected instead of seeking validation elsewhere? What if I had remembered that being a husband and father means making sacrifices for family instead of sacrificing family for momentary pleasure? But those are just fancies now. This is reality. I'm living alone in a studio apartment, seeing my children 20% of the time, watching them grow in photos on social media instead of in person. The affair lasted 2 weeks. The consequences will last the rest of my. I cheated because I felt like I deserved more attention, more excitement, more validation. Now I have less of everything that actually mattered. I wanted to feel wanted by another woman. Now I feel unwanted by everyone, including the children who used to think I hum the moon. People say kids are resilient, that they bounce back, that love conquers all. That's kids are resilient enough to adapt to new circumstances, which means they're resilient enough to adapt to without if give them no choice. My children have adapted to without their father, and they're doing just fine. That might be the most heartbreaking realization of all. They don't actually need me. They wanted me once upon a time, when I lived with them and tucked them in every night and was the person they ran to when they got. But I taught them that fathers leave, that husbands cheat, that the people who say they love the most are the ones most likely to betray. So they learned to depend on the people who stayed. They learned that family isn't about or biology. It's about who shows, day after day without conditions or excuses. I didn't show, I showed for Amanda instead. Now my kids show for Sarah's new husband and he shows for them. And I get to watch from the sidelines as another man raises the children I should have been raising, in the house I should have been living in, with the woman I should have been loving instead of betraying. I thought I could have everything I wanted. Instead I lost everything that mattered. The worst part is knowing that every single bit of this pain was preventable. If only I had been the man my family deserved instead of the selfish coward I actually was.